The pyre is already burning when the horn of Gondor sounds its last. Smoke claws the vaulted ceiling of the silent street, choking the air with resin and death. Denethor stands rigid in the wavering light, oil-slick torch in hand, as Faramir stirs and groans upon the bier. Outside, the walls of Minas Tirith thunder beneath the blows of trolls and rams, yet here, in this chamber of stone and fire, the fate of a city hangs on the tremor in a father's hand. Before we go deeper into this darker path through Middle-earth, take a second to support the journey. Like the video if you enjoy these alternate timelines, subscribe so you do not miss the next one, and tell me in the comments which realm you would stand for when the shadow rises. The torch dips closer to the piled wood, and sparks leap like startled fireflies. Faramir's eyes flutter, unfocused, fever-bright. His lips move, forming a single word that is more breath than voice. Father, the sound pierces through the roaring in Denethor's mind. For a heartbeat, the vision of ruin given by the Palantir wavers. No longer does he see only the black sails on the river, the hosts of Mordor like crawling ants upon the Pelennor, the white tree a dead claw against a blood-red sky. He sees a small boy, dark-haired and solemn, standing in a courtyard with a wooden sword too heavy for his hands. Denethor's grip on the torch tightens, oil drips hissing onto the stone. He hears another voice, remembered, not present. Mithrandir's, calm and unyielding in the tower hall. Authority is not given to you, steward of Gondor, to order the hour of your death, but it is not the wizard's rebuke that stays his hand. It is the memory of Faramir's face when he woke from the black breath, in some future that may yet be, and finds his father gone and his city broken. A future Denethor has seen only in a flash of terror, not from any stone, but in the hollow of his own heart. The torch shakes. A single drop of burning oil falls upon the kindling and smolders, then fades. Denethor drags in a breath that tastes of ash and madness. "Bring it away," he says. The servants stare, frozen. Baragond, blood on his sword, looks from father to son, hardly believing. "My lord?" a trembling voice asks. Denethor turns, and for the first time since the darkness of the Palantir closed upon him, his eyes are clear. "Put out the fire," he commands, "and bear the Lord Faramir to the houses of healing. While he yet breathes, he is not for the pyre." Mithrandir steps forward, white robes streaked with smoke and dust. His gaze searches Denethor's face, wary as if expecting some cruel jest. "You will yield him?" the wizard asks softly. Denethor's mouth twists. "I will yield nothing to you, Mithrandir," he says, and there is still iron in his voice. "But I will not burn the last of my house while there is war yet to wage." He looks down at Faramir. The fevered eyes have closed again, the brief spark of awareness gone. Denethor's hand, the same hand that held the torch, reaches out and brushes tangled hair from his son's brow. "Forgive me," he whispers, too low for any but the unconscious to hear. Then he straightens, and something in him seems to crack, not like glass shattering, but like ice breaking on a river in spring. The madness does not leave him. It recedes, dragged back by will and pride and a desperate, clinging love. "Gandalf," he says, and the name is heavy with old resentment, old rivalry. "You spoke of the authority of the steward. I will use it while I may. The city stands upon a knife's edge. If I fall, Gondor must not be left headless." Mithrandir's eyes narrow. "What do you intend?" Denethor looks past him, to the dark archway leading out of the house of the stewards, up through the circles of the city, to the tower hall, where the black chair waits. I will do what my father should have done, he says. I will give up what I can no longer bear, send for the warden of the houses. And for Prince Imrahil, if he yet lives, they will be witnesses. The torches gutter as if a wind has passed through the chamber, though the air is still. Far above on the walls of the city, the wind is anything but still. The Pelennor fields are a sea of fire and shadow. The great ram Grond booms against the gate for the last time, and stone screams in protest. Orcs howl, their voices a jagged chorus beneath the deeper roar of trolls and the shrill cries of Nazgul spiraling overhead. The stench of burning flesh and trampled earth rises like a foul mist. On the wall, a young guardsman named Targon flinches as another stone from the enemy's engines shatters against the parapet. Chips of white rock sting his face. He tastes blood and lime dust. "Hold the line!" a captain bellows, though his own voice shakes. "The gate holds!" Targon looks down. The gate does not look as if it will hold for long. Cracks spiderweb its surface, jagged black lines against the iron-bound wood. Each blow of Grond sends a shudder through the very bones of the city. He thinks of the white tower behind him, of the high, cold hall where the steward sits. He has never seen Denethor up close, only from a distance during solemn processions. The steward has always seemed as remote as the stars. "Where is our Lord now?" Targon mutters. Not quite prayer, not quite accusation. He will not know until much later how narrow a question that was. Deep in the houses of healing, the warden bows low, his hands wringing the hem of his robe. "My lord," he says, "the Lord Faramir is gravely stricken. The black breath lies upon him. We can do little but cool his fever and hope that hope is for those who have time." Denethor cuts in. "I have none. Yet I have one duty left that I may still perform." Imrahil of Dol Amroth stands nearby, helm in hand, his fair hair darkened with sweat and blood. He has ridden through fire to reach the city. His gray eyes, keen and sea-bright, studied Denethor with a mixture of concern and respect. "What duty is that, my lord?" he asks. Denethor's gaze shifts to Faramir, who lies pale and still upon the bed, his breathing shallow, his lips cracked. "The duty of a father," Denethor says, "and of a steward." He lifts his hand, and the warden falls silent. "Witness then," Denethor continues, voice steady, though his fingers tremble. "By the authority vested in me as steward of Gondor, I name Faramir, son of Denethor, my heir and successor in the stewardship, should I fall in the defense of this city. While he lies thus, the rule shall pass in trust to Prince Imrahil of Dol Amroth, to hold in Faramir's name until he wakes, or until his death is certain." Imrahil's eyes widen. "My lord, this is a burden I have no right to lay upon you." Denethor finishes, a bitter smile ghosting his lips. "You are yet of the blood of Numenor, Imrahil. Your house has stood faithful when others failed. If any in this city may be trusted with such a charge, it is you. Mithrandir watches, saying nothing. In his mind, he counts the dwindling hours. The beacons had blazed, Rohan had been summoned, but the riders are not yet upon the field. Every heartbeat spent in this chamber is a heartbeat closer to the fall of the gate." Imrahil inclines his head. "If you command it, Lord, I will bear the stewardship in trust," he says quietly. "But I would rather bear a sword beside you upon the walls." Denethor's eyes flicker, and for an instant the old fire flares. "Do you think I intend to cower here?" he says. "No, Prince. The house of Hurin will not be remembered for hiding while its people burned." He turns to Mithrandir. "You have ever meddled in the affairs of this city," Denethor says. "Now meddle where it may do some good. Guard my son. If there is any hope for him, wrest it from whatever darkness clings to him. For if Faramir dies, then Gondor will have no steward, and your precious king, if he comes, will find only ashes to reign over." Mithrandir's gaze softens, though his jaw remains set. "I will do what I can," he replies, "but the hands that are needed may not yet be within these walls." Denethor snorts. "Then pray your ragged ranger friend ride swiftly," he says. He leans down, his lips near Faramir's ear. "Hear me, Faramir," he murmurs. "By my word, you are steward of Gondor after me. Wake if you can. If not, forgive your father his failings." Faramir does not stir. His breath rattles faintly. Denethor straightens, and the last softness drains from his features, leaving behind something hard and terrible. "Come, Imrahil," he says. "Let the men of Gondor see that their lord yet lives, and that he does not flee the shadow. They leave the houses of healing together, white and blue cloaks flaring behind them like banners in the smoky air." In the tower hall, the black chair of the steward stands empty for the first time since the days when the king still walked in Minas Tirith. Dust motes drift in the shafts of light. The great standard of the white tree hangs limp, as if it, too, holds its breath. Denethor pauses at the foot of the dais. His hand brushes the carved arm of the chair, fingers tracing the worn grooves left by generations of stewards. "Guard this place," he tells the nearest guardsman. "No enemy banner shall fly here while one man of Gondor yet stands." The guardsman salutes, throat tight. "Yes, my lord." Denethor does not sit. He turns away, and the echo of his boots on the stone floor follows him out, a hollow counterpoint to the distant thunder of war. On the wall, Targon hears a shout go up from the lower circles. "The steward! The steward rides!" He risks a glance back over his shoulder and sees far below a small knot of riders emerging from the courtyard of the citadel. At their head is a tall figure in black and silver, helm crowned with the wings of a seabird, cloak streaming. Beside him rides a prince in swan-feathered helm, banner of Dol Amroth snapping in the wind. For a moment, awe burns away. Targon's fear. He comes. He breathes. Lord Denethor comes. The news races along the walls like fire along a fuse. Men straighten. Hands grip spear and sword with renewed strength. The city, which had seemed a besieged fortress, suddenly feels like a living thing, its heart beating again. Denethor and Imrahil ride down through the circles, past shuttered windows and huddled families. Faces peer from doorways, pale and anxious. A child clutching a ragged doll points with wide eyes. "Is that the king?" she whispers. Her mother pulls her back. "Hush, that is the steward," she says, but there is a question in her voice, as if the titles have begun to blur in the smoke. Denethor hears the murmur, though he does not look up. His jaw tightens. King. The word is a thorn in his side, a shadow at the edge of his vision. He has seen, in the Palantir's merciless gaze, a tall man in weather-stained gray, a broken sword reforged, a banner unfurling above the black ships. Yet he has also seen the hosts of Mordor, the eye searching. He has seen Minas Tirith burning. He has not, until this moment, allowed for the possibility that between despair and madness there might be another path. As they reach the lower levels, the ground trembles under the assault on the gate. Dust sifts from the walls. Dogs howl. At last, they emerge into the great court before the gate. The air is thick with smoke and the iron stink of orc blood. The gate towers before them, massive and wounded, each boom of Graun's blows sending splinters flying. Denethor reins in and stares at the ram. It is a monstrous thing, black and iron-shod, carved like the gaping maw of some fell beast. Fires burn along its length. Trolls heave at the chains, their muscles bulging, their eyes red with hate. Grond, Denethor says quietly. They name it after the hammer of the underworld. Sauron has a grim sense of poetry. Imrahil's horse tosses its head, nostrils flaring. My lord, we cannot sally forth, the prince says. Not while that thing strikes the gate. We would be crushed beneath it. Denethor's eyes narrow. Then we must hold until it falls, he replies, and pray that Rohan comes before the walls fail. He raises his voice, calling to the captains on the battlements. Men of Gondor, he cries, and his voice rings against the stone. You have held this city through fire and fear. You have faced the hosts of the enemy and not faltered. I am Denethor, son of Ecthelion, steward of Gondor. I stand with you now, not in the high halls, but here where the blows fall. A murmur runs along the wall like the rustle of wind in dead leaves. Targon leans over the parapet, eyes shining. He is here, he says to no one in particular. He is truly here. Denethor draws his sword. The blade flashes, catching what little light filters through the smoke. As long as one stone of this city stands upon another, we will not yield, he shouts, not to the orc, not to the troll, not to the Dark Lord himself. Remember your fathers, remember your children. This is your home. Let the enemy pay for every step with blood. The men roar in answer, their voices harsh but fierce. For a brief, fragile moment, hope breathes in the shadow of the gate. In the houses of healing, hope is a quieter thing. Mithrandir sits beside Faramir's bed, staff across his knees. The warden moves in and out, applying cool cloths, murmuring to his assistants. Outside, the sounds of battle rise and fall like a distant storm. Faramir's face is pale, drawn. Sweat beads his brow. His hands twitch as if grasping for something in a dream. Mithrandir studies him, eyes hooded. You have walked close to the shadow, young steward, he says softly. Closer than your father knew, or perhaps he knew and could not bear it. He lays his hand upon Faramir's brow. A faint tremor passes through the air like the shiver of a plucked string. Faramir's breath hitches. In his mind, darkness presses in. A great eye turns toward him, lidless, rimmed with fire. He feels its gaze like a brand upon his soul. Around him, the ruins of Osgiliath smoke, and the river runs black. He hears his father's voice, distant and distorted. You love to learn, my son, and do not love the sword. You are soft in heart and soft in head. The words cut, as they always have. But now, another voice threads through them. Quiet and clear. You chose exile rather than disobedience, Mithrandir had once said. That is a hard road. In the fever dream, Faramir stands between the two voices, torn. The eye bears down, promising pain, promising oblivion. The river whispers of rest. The city rises behind him, white and vulnerable. Then, from somewhere far away, another sound reaches him, the clang of steel, a voice shouting, proud and unbending, as long as one stone of this city stands upon another, we will not yield, his father's voice. The words are not the words he remembers. They are new, sharp with defiance, not scorn. They cut through the darkness like a blade. Faramir turns, in the dream. The eye's gaze falters just for a moment. Mithrandir feels it, a subtle loosening of some invisible grip. Hold fast, the wizard murmurs. Your father has not yet fallen, nor have you. Outside, Grond strikes again. With a final shattering boom, the gate of Minas Tirith explodes inward. Splinters of iron and wood scythe through the air, deadly as arrows. Trolls bellow and surge forward, dragging the broken wings of the gate aside. The hosts of Mordor howl in triumph. Denethor reels in the shockwave, his horse dancing sideways. Dust and smoke billow, obscuring everything. For a heartbeat, the world is sound and impact, nothing more. Then the dust begins to settle. Through the jagged maw where the gate once stood, a vast shape looms. A black horse, gaunt and terrible, its mane like smoke. Upon its back sits a tall figure in sable and iron, crowned with a helm of cruel spikes. No face is visible beneath the shadowed hood, only a sense of absence. Of cold, the Witch King of Angmar rides into the court of the gate. Fear slams into the hearts of men like a physical blow. Targon gasps, clutching at the parapet. His vision swims. Around him, other guardsmen stagger, some dropping their weapons, eyes wide and glassy. Denethor feels it too. A pressure, a weight, like the hand of a giant upon his chest. His sword arm trembles. His horse snorts, rolling its eyes, foam flecking its bit. For a moment, the mad whispers of the Palantir surge back, hissing, "You are alone. All is lost. Burn and be done." Denethor grits his teeth. He forces his hand to stillness. "I am Denethor, steward of Gondor," he says under his breath. "I will not bow." The Witch King's voice rolls out, deep and mocking, echoing against the stones. "Come not between the Nazgul and his prey," he had once said to a hobbit and a shield maiden upon another field. Here, his words are different. "Men of Gondor," he calls, "your doom is come. Your walls are broken. Your lord is weak. Yield, and I may yet spare some to serve in the new order." His gaze, unseen but searing, turns toward Denethor. "Steward," he says, the title a sneer, "come forth and kneel, and I will make your end swift." Denethor's horse shies, but he digs in his heels and rides forward into the open space before the ruined gate. Imrahil curses softly and follows, unwilling to let him face the terror alone. "Lord Denethor," Imrahil hisses, "this is folly. Fall back. We cannot face him here." Denethor does not answer at once. He stares at the Witch King, and in that stare is more than defiance. There is recognition, ancient and bitter. "You are the lord of the Nazgul," Denethor says, his voice carrying in the stunned silence. "Once a king of men, they say, now a slave in all but name." The Witch King laughs, a sound like grinding ice. "You speak of slavery, puppet of a deadline?" he replies. "You cling to a throne that is not yours. Your city is crumbling, your heirs are broken. You are nothing but a caretaker of ruins." Denethor's mouth twists. "Better a caretaker of ruins than a dog of the dark," he says. "I have seen your master's eye. It fears this city still for all its power. It fears the memory of the kings you helped to destroy." The Witch King shifts in his saddle. The air around him grows colder. "Words," he says. "You have spent your life in words, steward. They will not save you now." He raises his sword. Fire runs along its edge. Denethor feels the weight of it like a physical threat. His horse stamps. Tossing its head, Imrahil leans close. "My lord," the prince murmurs, "remember your son. Do not throw away what you have just done." The image of Faramir lying in the houses of healing flashes before Denethor's eyes. His hand tightens on the hilt of his sword until his knuckles whiten. He turns his head slightly, enough that his words will carry to the men on the walls. "Hear me," he calls. "By my own mouth, I have named Faramir, son of Denethor, steward of Gondor after me. If I fall here, he is your lord. You will obey him as you have obeyed me." A murmur runs along the battlements. Targon stares, stunned. "Faramir?" he whispers. But he lies near death. Another guardsman, older, shakes his head. "Then we must pray he wakes," he says. "Better Faramir than no steward at all." The Witch King laughs again, harsher. "You bequeath ashes, steward," he says. "There will be no Gondor when this day is done, only dust and bones." Denethor lifts his sword. "Then come and make dust of me," he says, "if you can." The Witch King spurs his mount. Time seems to slow. The Nazgul's horse surges forward, hooves striking sparks from the shattered stones. The air screams. Men on the walls cry out, some dropping to their knees, hands over their ears. Denethor's own horse rears, panic-stricken. He fights for control, teeth bared in a grimace. Imrahil shouts, trying to flank. To draw some of the terror away, the Witch King's blade sweeps down, and in that instant, a horn sounds. It is not the horn of Gondor, but it is clear and fierce, cutting through the despair like a shaft of sunlight through storm clouds. From the west, faint but growing, comes the thunder of many hooves. Mithrandir hears it in the houses of Helin and lifts his head, eyes bright. "So," he says, "the Rohirrim have come." On the wall, Targon stares westward, heart pounding. "Rohan," he breathes. "They are here." The Witch King hesitates just for a heartbeat, his unseen gaze flickering toward the sound. It is the smallest of pauses, but in it, fate shifts. Denethor drives his heels into his horse's flanks. The animal, half mad with fear, lunges forward. The steward of Gondor, who had nearly burned his own son in despair, rides to meet the lord of the Nazgul. Their blades clash with a sound like a bell breaking. Pain lances up Denethor's arm, numbing his fingers. The Witch King's strength is inhuman, bolstered by ancient sorcery and the will of Sauron. Denethor is a man past his prime, worn by years and care. Yet he does not fall at once. He twists, parries, feels the heat of the Morgul blade close enough to scorch his skin. His horse screams as a glancing blow sears its flank. Imrahil darts in, striking at the Witch King's side, but his sword skitters off invisible armor, sparks flying. Back, Prince of Dol Amroth, the Witch King snarls. "This old man is mine." Denethor laughs, breathless. "Old am I?" he gasps. "Yet I stand where you cannot, servant. I stand in the light, and you cower in shadow." The Witch King's next blow hammers Denethor's sword aside. The steward's arm goes numb. His blade flies from his hand, spinning away across the stones. For a moment, he is weaponless, exposed. Above, on the wall, Targon shouts without thinking, "Lord Denethor!" The Witch King raises his sword for the killing stroke. And from the west, the horn sounds again, nearer now, wild and exultant. The Nazgul's head turns, drawn by some command only he can hear. The eyes will tugs at him. "Not yet," it seems to say. The king of Rohan comes. "Break him first." The Witch King snarls, frustrated. His sword wavers. Denethor, on his knees, looks up at the towering black figure. In that instant, he understands something. He is not the true target here. He is not the true threat. He is, in the grand design, a piece on the board, nothing more. He feels for the first time a strange, bitter freedom. "Go then," he rasps. "Chase your doom on the Pelennor. This city will not fall as easily as you think." The Witch King's gaze burns into him, promising pain, promising a reckoning deferred, not denied. "You will see me again, steward," he hisses. "If you live so long." Then he wheels his mount and rides out through the shattered gate. his black cloak streaming. The hosts of Mordor pour in his wake, howling, surging out onto the Pelennor to meet the oncoming riders of Rohan. Denethor collapses back, breathing hard. Imrahil is at his side in an instant, hauling him to his feet. "Are you hurt, my lord?" the prince demands. Denethor's right arm hangs useless at his side, the muscles spasming. "I will live," he says, voice hoarse. "For now." He looks out through the ruined gate, where the first clash of Rohan and Mordor is beginning, a storm of dust and flashing steel. "The game goes on," he murmurs. On the fields outside, Theoden King rides to his last charge, and Éowyn waits for her moment beneath the shadow of the Witch King. That tale unfolds much as it once did, for some threads are too tightly woven to be easily altered. Yet, within the city, the pattern has already begun to change. In the houses of healing, Faramir's fever breaks. It is not sudden, like a door flung wide, but gradual, like dawn seeping into a long night. His breathing eases, the tightness in his jaw relaxes. The shadow upon his face lightens almost imperceptibly. Mithrandir feels it and smiles. A small, weary smile. "You are stubborn, son of Denethor," he says. "That is just as well. Your city will need that stubbornness." The warden, hovering anxiously, lets out a breath he did not know he held. "Will he wake, Lord?" he asks. "In time," Mithrandir replies. "But when he does, he will wake to a world changed. Outside, the change is already in motion. On the Pelennor, the Rohirrim charge, their cries filling the air. The Witch King falls beneath the hand of a woman and the courage of a hobbit. Black sails appear upon the river. Then unfurl the white tree and 7 stars. Aragorn, son of Arathorn, comes to the aid of Gondor, as foretold. Within the walls, Denethor watches from the shattered court of the gate, arm in a sling, face streaked with soot. He sees the banner of Elendil rise above the chaos white against the dark. His heart twists. The Palantir had shown him this. He had thought it a mockery, a false hope dangled before him by the enemy. Yet here it is, real and undeniable. A king returns to Gondor. Imrahil, standing beside him, follows his gaze. "Do you see, my lord?" the prince says quietly. "Hope yet lives." Denethor's jaw tightens. "Hope?" he repeats, the word tasting strange. "Or doom? For if he comes, what place is there for a steward?" Imrahil looks at him, eyes steady. "A steward's place," he says, "is where it has always been. At the side of the king, or in his absence, in his stead. You have held this city through long years of darkness, Denethor. That will not be forgotten." Denethor does not answer. He watches as Aragorn's standard moves through the press of battle, a point of order in chaos. In the houses of healing, that same standard is carried in by a ranger in worn leathers, flanked by an elf and a dwarf. The warden bows, flustered. Éowyn lies pale and still. Merry the hobbit shivers, haunted by the black breath. Aragorn's hands move with purpose, with gentleness. King's foil is brought, crushed, steeped. The scent of it fills the air, fresh and clean, cutting through the stink of blood and sickness. When he comes at last to Faramir, he pauses, studying the young man's face. "This is a captain of Gondor," Aragorn says softly. He has walked close to death. Mithrandir steps forward. He is more than that now, the wizard says. Denethor has named him steward in his place. Aragorn's brows lift. "Has he indeed?" he murmurs. "Then Gondor's fate and mine are more tightly bound than I had thought." He lays his hand upon Faramir's brow. "Faramir, son of Denethor," he calls, voice low but commanding. "Come back. Your city calls you. Your duty is not yet done." In the gray space between waking and sleep, Faramir hears the voice. It is not his father's, not Mithrandir's. It is unfamiliar, yet it carries authority. Not as a weight, but as a mantle offered, he sees in his mind's eye the white tree in bloom, the city gleaming in the sun, the shadow drawn back. He sees himself standing upon the walls, older perhaps, but unbowed. He reaches toward that vision. And the darkness recedes. His eyes open. Light stabs at him. He blinks, disoriented. Faces swim into focus. The warden, wide-eyed Mithrandir, smiling faintly, a tall man with gray eyes and a worn but noble face. "Where am I?" Faramir whispers. His throat feels as if he has swallowed sand. "In the houses of healing," Mithrandir replies. "In Minas Tirith. You have been very close to death, Faramir." Memory rushes back. Osgiliath, the Nazgul. Fire, his father's face, twisted with something like grief and madness. "My father," Faramir croaks. "What of my father? He lives," Mithrandir says. "You may thank him, in part, for that. He did not burn you, Faramir. He named you his heir instead." Faramir stares, stunned. What? Aragorn steps closer. "Faramir, son of Denethor." He says, "By your father's decree, you are steward of Gondor after him. I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, and I come to claim the crown of Elendil, if the city will have me. I would have your counsel in that matter." Faramir's mind reels. He tries to sit up, but the room spins. Aragorn's hand is there, steadying him. "A king," Faramir whispers. "You are Isildur's heir." Aragorn inclines his head. "So I am told," he says dryly. "But a claim means little without the will of the people, and of their steward." Faramir's thoughts flicker back to his father, to long evenings in the Tower Hall, to arguments about Gondor's future, about the North, about the line of Isildur. Denethor's disdain for this ranger from the North had been palpable. What would my father say to this? Faramir murmurs. Mithrandir's gaze softens. "He would have opposed it," he says, bitterly. "But your father is not the only voice in Gondor. Nor is he the only one who has borne its burdens." Faramir closes his eyes for a moment, gathering his strength. "Then I must see him," he says, "for if I am to speak as steward, I will not do so over my father's head, not while he yet lives." Mithrandir nods. "You will see him," he says, "but not yet. Rest a little, Faramir. The city still stands, and the battle is not yet fully won. There will be time for hard words and harder choices. Outside, the battle on the Pelennor reaches its crescendo. The Black Captain falls. The Corsair ships are taken. The hosts of Mordor are driven back, broken, though not destroyed. The dead ride with Aragorn and then depart, their oath fulfilled. The sun sets on a field of ruin and victory. Within Minas Tirith, the dead are counted, the wounded are tended, fires are quenched. The great gate is propped up with timbers and iron, a makeshift barrier against the dark lands beyond. Denethor stands in the Tower Hall once more. The black chair looms behind him. The hall is lit by torches and flickering lamps. The air smells of smoke and sweat and the faint, bitter tang of fear. Before him stand Imrahil, Mithrandir, and Aragorn. The ranger's clothes have been changed for a simple tunic of gray and silver. He wears no crown, but a star-shaped brooch gleams at his throat. His bearing is calm, but there is tension in the set of his shoulders. Denethor's arm is still in a sling. His face is lined more deeply than before, as if the last day has carved years into him. "So," he says, eyes fixed on Aragorn, "you come at last to the Hall of the Stewards, Isildur's heir." Aragorn meets his gaze without flinching. "I come to aid Gondor." he replies, "not to usurp it." Denethor's mouth twists. "Fine words," he says. "Yet you bear the banner of Elendil. You wield the sword that was broken. You heal with the hands of a king. Do you expect me to believe you have no thought of the throne?" Aragorn's jaw tightens. "I have thought of little else for many years," he says, "but I have also thought of the cost. I will not take the crown as a conqueror, Denethor, only if it is freely given." Mithrandir steps forward, staff tapping on the stone. "There is little time for old quarrels," he says. "Sauron has been dealt a grievous blow, but he is not defeated. The eye turns toward us even now. We must decide our course swiftly." Denethor's gaze flickers to the high windows, where the sky outside is a bruised purple streaked with smoke. "You speak as if I do not know the enemy's mind," he says. "I have seen more of his designs than any of you, save perhaps you, Mithrandir." "The Palantir has shown me much." Imrahil stiffens. "You used the Seeing Stone?" he asks, dismay in his voice. Denethor's eyes flash. "I am steward of Gondor," he snaps. "Will you tell me I had no right to use the tools of my office?" Mithrandir's voice is gentle, but there is steel beneath. "No one denies your right," he says, "only the wisdom of the choice. The stone is a dangerous master." Denethor laughs harsh and short. "Do not lecture me on danger," he says. "I have walked its edge for years. And what I saw there is this: Sauron's strength is vast. His armies are beyond counting. This victory upon the Pelennor is but a respite, not an end. If we sit behind these walls and wait, he will crush us in time." Aragorn nods slowly. "In that we are agreed," he says. "We must draw his eye away from his own land, from his own borders. We must give the ring-bearer a chance." Denethor's eyes narrow. "The ring-bearer," he repeats. "So it is true, then. You sent the weapon of the enemy into his own land, in the hands of a halfling?" Mithrandir's face tightens. "It was a hard choice," he says, "but the only one that offered any hope." Denethor shakes his head. "Hope," he says again softly, almost to himself. "You speak of hope as if it were a coin to be spent. I have had little enough of it in my life." He looks at Aragorn. "You would lead an army into the Black Land," he says, "to the very gates of Mordor. A forlorn hope indeed." Aragorn's gaze is steady. "Yes," he says simply, "I would." Silence falls. The torches crackle. Imrahil shifts, his hand resting lightly on the hilt of his sword. "My lord," he says to Denethor, "I have fought beside this man. He is no mere chancer seeking a crown. If there is any chance to strike at the heart of the enemy, we must take it. We cannot win by walls alone." Denethor's eyes flicker to Mithrandir. "And you, wizard?" he asks. "Do you counsel this madness?" Mithrandir's expression is grave. "I do," he says, "for I have walked in the dark places of the world, Denethor. I have seen what Sauron will make of all lands if he triumphs. Better to perish in a last bold stroke than to wither slowly under his hand." Denethor looks away, toward the empty black chair. "The house of Hurin has stood for 1,000 years, he murmurs. "We have held this city through plagues and invasions, through the fall of kings and the waning of our own blood. Now, at the end, you ask me to throw what remains of Gondor's strength into a fire from which few will return." Aragorn takes a step forward. "I do not ask you to do anything I will not do myself," he says. "I will lead this march. I will stand before the Black Gate. If I fall, so be it. But I will not skulk behind stone while others die in my stead." Denethor's gaze snaps back to him. "You speak of not skulking," he says. Yet where were you when my sons fought at Osgiliath? Where were you when the South Runs marched up the Harad Road, when the Corsairs took Pelargir? Aragorn's face tightens. I was in the wild places, he says, fighting battles you will never hear of, holding back shadows that would have fallen on your borders long ago. I do not say this to claim credit, Denethor, only to say that I have not been idle. Mithrandir's eyes move between them, measuring. The time for old grievances is past, he says quietly. Denethor, you have done what few could have. You turned from despair when it had you by the throat. You named your son your heir. That was an act of courage greater than any charge upon the field. Denethor flinches as if struck. Do not dress my failures in fine words, he says. I nearly burned my own child. That stain will not wash out, not with all the waters of the Anduin. He closes his eyes for a moment, then opens them again, and when he speaks next, his voice is different, quieter, tired. I will not stand in the way of this last throw, he says. If we are to die, better it be with swords in our hands than waiting for the hammer to fall. But I will not yield the stewardship to you, Isildur's heir. Not yet. Aragorn inclines his head. I did not ask you to, he says. Not while you live and bear it. Denethor's mouth twists in a sad smile. Do you think me so proud that I would cling to this chair while you march to your death? He asks. No, Aragorn. If you go to the Black Gate, I go with you. The steward does not send others where he will not walk. Mithrandir's brows rise. You would march against Mordor yourself? He asks. You are wounded, Denethor. You have spent your strength. Denethor's gaze hardens. Then I will spend what remains, he says. I have no desire to sit in this hall and wait for tidings. My place is where Gondor's fate is decided. Imrahil steps forward. Then who will rule in your absence, he asks. Faramir is barely risen from his sickbed. Denethor's eyes soften, just a little. Faramir is stronger than you think, he says, but I will not lay that weight upon him alone. Not yet. Imrahil, you will remain as his right hand. Between you, you will hold the city. If we do not return, he trails off. Mithrandir finishes the thought. If you do not return, then the choice of the king will fall to them, he says, and to the people of Gondor. Denethor nods. So be it, he says. Let the line of stewards end as it began, in service, not in usurpation. He turns to Aragorn. We will march, he says, steward and would-be king, side by side, to the Black Gate, to whatever end awaits us there. Aragorn's eyes meet his, and for the first time there is something like respect in them. So be it, he echoes. In the houses of healing, Faramir sits propped against pillows, pale but alert. The warden fusses, trying to keep him from rising. You are not yet strong enough to walk the length of the corridor, let alone rule a city, the warden protests. Faramir smiles faintly. Rule? He says. I have no desire to rule, Master Warden, only to serve. Mithrandir enters, his presence filling the room. You may have little choice in the matter, Faramir, he says. Your father and Aragorn mean to march upon the Black Gate. They would have you hold Minas Tirith in their absence. Faramir's smile fades. My father goes to the Black Gate, he repeats. He is wounded. He is Denethor, Mithrandir says. He will not be gainsaid. Faramir looks down at his hands, thin and scarred. I thought, he begins, then stops. You thought he would never look at you as he looks at Boromir, Mithrandir says gently. You thought you would never be enough for him. Yet he named you his heir when darkness was thickest. That is not nothing, Faramir. Faramir's throat tightens. I do not know if I can forgive him. He whispers, for what he almost did, for what he said. But I cannot hate him either. He is my father. Mithrandir nods. Love is seldom simple, he says, nor is duty. You will have to bear both. Faramir looks up, eyes clear. Tell me what must be done, he says. The days that follow are a blur of preparation. In the great square before the ruined gate, an army assembles. Men from Gondor's fiefdoms, from Dol Amroth, from the Pelennor. A small force, compared to the might of Mordor, but chosen, hardened. Denethor rides among them, cloak black against the pale stone. His arm is still stiff, but he holds himself straight. Aragorn rides at his side, Andúril at his hip, the standard of Elendil carried behind him. On the walls, Targon watches, heart in his throat. He has been chosen to remain, to guard the city with those too young, too old, or too wounded to march. He watches as Denethor reins in and looks up at the citadel. At a high window, Faramir stands, supported by a cane, Imrahil beside him. The wind tugs at his dark hair. Denethor raises his hand in a brief, almost awkward gesture. It is not quite a salute, not quite a farewell. Faramir lifts his own hand in answer. Their eyes meet across the distance. No words can cross that gulf, but something passes between them nonetheless. Regret, pride, fear, love, complicated and unspoken. Then Denethor turns his horse and rides out through the gate into the shadowed land beyond. The march to the Black Gate is a long one, made longer by the weight of what it means. The land grows harsher, the air fouler, the sky darker with each mile. The men speak little. Each footstep feels like another stitch in a shroud. At the head of the host, Denethor and Aragorn ride in silence for a time. The ground beneath them is cracked, lifeless. At last, Denethor speaks. When I was a young man, he says, I dreamed of riding north, of seeing the ruins of Anúminas, of walking the lands where the kings of old once ruled. My father forbade it. He said my duty was here. Aragorn glances at him, surprised. I have walked those lands, he says. They are fair in their way, lonely, full of ghosts. Denethor's mouth quirks. Gondor is full of ghosts, he says. We carry them in our blood, in our stories. Sometimes I think they weigh more than the living. He looks ahead, toward the invisible line where the land of Mordor begins. And now, he murmurs, I ride not to the lands of my fathers, but to the very heart of their enemy. There is a certain symmetry in that. Aragorn is silent for a moment. Why did you change your mind? He asks at last. In the house of the stewards, you were ready to burn. What turned you from that path? Denethor's jaw tightens. I saw my son's face, he says. Not as he lay there, fevered and near death, as a child, as a boy eager to please, always second to Boromir in my eyes. I saw what my despair would do to him, to Gondor. The Palantir showed me many things, Aragorn, but it did not show me that. That I had to see for myself. He looks at Aragorn, eyes sharp. Do not mistake me, he says. I still think your plan is madness. I still think we are walking into death. But if we must die, let it be in a way that gives my son and his children, if he has them, a chance to live in a world without this shadow. Aragorn nods slowly. Then we are agreed, at least. On that, he says. At the Black Gate, the armies of the West stand before the vast iron doors, the jagged towers, the endless ranks of orcs and trolls, and worse beyond. The eye blazes overhead, a red wound in the sky. The parley with the mouth of Sauron is brief and bitter. The tokens of Frodo are shown. Denethor's face goes white when he sees the mithril coat, the small elven cloak. You sent a halfling to his death, he says to Mithrandir, voice shaking with fury and grief. You sent him into that? Mithrandir's eyes are full of pain. I sent him with what hope I could, he replies. Hope and a friend. Do not judge too swiftly, Denethor. The tale is not yet ended. Denethor's hands clench on the pommel of his saddle. Then let us end it, he says. One way or another, the battle at the Black Gate is chaos and courage and terror. Men fall, orcs die. Trolls roar. The ground shakes. Denethor fights like a man with nothing left to lose but his honor. His sling-bound arm hampers him, but his sword finds its mark more than once. He stands near Aragorn, near Mithrandir, near Éomer and the captains of the West. When the ground begins to tremble in a different way, a deeper way, all pause. Far to the east, beyond the ashen plains, a great mountain erupts. Fire spews into the sky. The eye wavers, then flares in sudden, blinding intensity. Denethor feels it, a pressure in his skull, as if something vast and hateful has turned its full attention upon him. Then, abruptly, it is gone. The Black Gate shudders. The towers crack. The hosts of Mordor falter, then break. Denethor watches as the great iron doors collapse, as the dark land convulses. He feels, in that moment, a weight lift from his shoulders that he had not even known he still bore. It is done, Mithrandir says, voice filled with awe. Aragorn's head bows. So falls Sauron, he murmurs. Denethor stands very still. In his mind, he sees the White Tower, the cracked gate, the houses of healing. He sees Faramir, pale but alive. He sees Boromir, laughing strong, then falling beneath a storm of arrows. He sees his own hands holding a torch above his son's body. He closes his eyes. Boromir, he whispers, I have failed you, but perhaps I have given your brother a chance to succeed where we could not. In Minas Tirith, the earth trembles. The people cry out in fear, then in wonder, as the great shadow that has loomed over the eastern horizon for so long wavers and disperses. The dark cloud above Mordor thins. For the first time in many lives, a clear blue line appears above the mountains. Faramir stands upon the walls, cane in hand, Imrahil beside him. Targon is there too, face streaked with grime, eyes wide. What is happening? Targon breathes. Faramir's gaze is fixed on the east, the end of an age, he says softly, or the beginning of one. Imrahil's hand tightens on his shoulder. Your father, the prince says. Do you think he... Faramir's throat works. I do not know, he says, but if he dies there, he dies as he would have wished. With a sword in his hand, facing his enemy, he lifts his eyes to the sky, where the last tatters of the shadow blow away like smoke. Father, he whispers, come back if you can. If not, I will do what I can to mend what you have broken and to honor what you have saved. The days that follow are full of messengers and marvels. The army of the West returns, battered but triumphant. The story of the ring-bearer spreads, of two small hobbits who walked into the heart of fire and came out again. Songs are sung. Banners are raised. Denethor rides back into Minas Tirith with the others. He is thinner. There are new lines on his face, new scars on his body. But there is also something different in his eyes, a lightness almost. Or perhaps it is simply the absence of a weight that had been there so long no one had noticed it until it was gone. Faramir meets him in the court before the gate. They stand facing each other, father and son, in the shadow of the broken arch. For a moment, neither speaks. Then Denethor steps forward. Faramir, he says. Faramir's voice is rough. Father, Denethor's hand lifts as if to touch his son's face, then falls back. I wronged you, he says, in many ways. I will not ask your forgiveness. I have no right to it. But I will say this. When darkness was thickest, it was your face that turned me from it, not Boromir's, yours. Faramir's eyes fill. I loved you, he says, even when you could not see it, even when you did not want it. Denethor's jaw trembles. I know, he says. Too late, I know. They stand. Two men bound by blood and regret in a city that has survived them both. In the weeks that follow, Minas Tirith changes. The great gate is remade, stronger and fairer than before. The white tree, long dead, is replaced by a sapling brought from the snows of Mindalluin. Flowers bloom in the courts. The people laugh more easily, though the scars of war remain. Aragorn is crowned King Elisar Tel Kontar. He walks up the long street, past cheering crowds, past banners of white and silver and blue. At the top of the citadel, he kneels before Faramir, who holds the crown of Gondor in his hands. In another time, in another tale, Faramir would have spoken words of surrender, of yielding the rule to the king. Here, the words catch in his throat. He looks to his father. Denethor stands to one side, his black cloak plain, his bearing still proud. His eyes meet Faramir's. For a moment, the hall holds its breath. Then, Denethor steps forward. He takes the crown from Faramir's hands. It feels heavy, colder than he expected. He turns to Aragorn. In the name of the house of Hurin, Denethor says, voice carrying clear and strong, and of all the stewards who have held this city in trust, I, Denethor, son of Ecthelion, yield the rule of Gondor to you, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, heir of Isildur and Elendil. May you bear it better than we did. He holds out the crown. Aragorn takes it, but instead of placing it upon his own head, he looks at Denethor. Rise, Denethor, he says. You have borne a heavy burden. I will not take this crown as a gift from a broken man. Stand as my equal, as far as any man may be equal to another in such matters. Denethor hesitates, then straightens. I am no king, he says. No, Aragorn agrees. You are a steward, and I will have need of stewards in the days to come. He turns, raising the crown high, then lowers it onto his own head. The hall erupts in cheers. Denethor steps back beside Faramir. Your king, he says quietly. Faramir nods. Our king, he echoes. The years that follow are years of rebuilding and renewal. Gondor's fields are sown again. Its walls are mended. Trade flows along the Anduin. Men from the north come to the south, and men from the south travel to the north. Old grudges fade, new alliances form. Denethor does not vanish into obscurity. He serves as an advisor to King Elisar, his knowledge of Gondor's history and politics proving invaluable. He and Aragorn argue often and fiercely over matters great and small. They clash over the pace of reform, over the treatment of former enemies, over the balance between tradition and change. Sometimes their arguments echo through the tower hall like distant thunder. Yet beneath the contention there is a grudging respect. They have stood together before the Black Gate. They have seen each other's strengths and weaknesses laid bare. Faramir, as steward, becomes the bridge between them. He spends long hours listening, mediating, offering his own counsel. He learns when to speak and when to be silent, when to press his father and when to let Aragorn's words stand. In Ithilien, under Faramir's guidance, the woods bloom again. Elves come, their songs mingling with the sound of the Anduin. Houses are built among the trees. Children play where once only orcs crept. Targon, the young guardsman who once clung to the parapet in terror, becomes captain of the guard in the rebuilt gate. He marries a woman from Lothar, has 2 children, and tells them stories at night of the day the shadow broke. In his tales, Denethor is not the madman of whispered rumor, but the steward who rode to face the Witch King and lived. Yet, for all the light, shadows remain. Denethor never fully escapes the memory of the Palantir. Sometimes, in quiet moments, he feels again the eyes gaze upon him. He dreams of fire, of Faramir's still form upon the bier. He wakes with his hands clenched, nails biting into his palms. He never again touches the seeing stone. Aragorn keeps it locked away, and in time it grows dim, its visions fading. But the memory of what it showed lingers. In one such dark night, Denethor stands alone upon the walls of Minas Tirith, looking east. The sky is clear, the stars bright. The mountains of Mordor are a jagged line against the horizon, no longer wreathed in shadow. Faramir finds him there. "Father," he says softly, "it is late." Denethor does not turn at once. "I spent too many nights here," he says, watching for fires on the horizon, listening for the sound of drums. "It is hard to remember that I do not need to now." Faramir steps up beside him. "The shadow is gone," he says. "For now, at least. There will be other dangers, other wars, perhaps. But not like that. Not in our time." Denethor's mouth twists. "You speak as if you can see the future," he says. "Be wary of that, Faramir. The future is a treacherous thing to gaze upon." Faramir's hand brushes the cold stone of the parapet. "I do not need a stone to tell me what matters," he says. "I see my king, striving to heal what was broken. I see my people laughing in the streets. I see my father, who turned from despair when it would have been easier to surrender to it." Denethor flinches. "Do not make a hero of me," he says. "I do not deserve it." Faramir's gaze is steady. "Heroes are not those who never fall," he says. "They are those who rise again. You rose, father. That is enough." Denethor looks at him, eyes bright in the starlight. "Is it?" he whispers. Faramir does not answer with words. He simply stands there, shoulder to shoulder, with his father, looking out over the land that they have both bled for. Below them, in the courts of the city, lanterns glow. Somewhere, a child laughs. A woman sings a lullaby in a language older than the walls. The white tree rustles in a faint breeze. The age of the stewards is over. The age of the kings has begun. Yet, in the quiet spaces between triumph and peace, in the memories that cling to stone and blood, the choices of one man echo. In another world, Denethor burned, and his son woke to ashes, and a city saved in spite of him. Here, he passed his stewardship before the flames could take him. He rode to war beside the king he once feared and hated. He lived to see a world he had thought forever lost. Middle-earth is gentler for it in some ways, harder in others. For there is a weight in living with the knowledge that despair is a choice, not an inevitability, that even at the edge of madness, a man may still turn aside, that the line between ruin and redemption can be as thin as a father-trembling hand held back from the torch. Years later, when Denethor is gone at last, not in fire but in a quiet bed, with Faramir's hand in his, the people of Gondor will argue over his legacy. Some will remember the proud, hard man who nearly destroyed his own house. Others will speak of the steward who faced the Witch King and did not break. The truth will lie somewhere in between, as it so often does. In the houses of healing, a new warden will sometimes pause by an empty bed and wonder at the faint scorch mark on the stones, half scrubbed away, stubborn as memory. He will ask the older healers about it, and they will shrug, or tell him half-remembered tales of the siege, of fire and madness turned aside at the last moment, and in the silence after their voices fade, the mark will remain. A small, dark reminder that the line between the world we know and the world we fear is not drawn by fate or by the will of dark lords, but by the choices of frail, fallible hearts in chambers of stone and smoke, with torches that may yet be lowered before they touch the wood.